Okay, welcome back to the channel. Hope you're all keeping well. It's me, Cal, and as always, it's my job to break down complex legal issues into simple and easy to understand advice. And today we're talking about a very controversial and extremely misunderstood topic right now, which is freedom of speech in the UK. I know for a fact people do not understand what that freedom actually is in the UK, and misconceptions are being thrown around everywhere. Many people who think we have the same protections as they do in the United States. Well, as a lawyer who is also qualified in the States, let me break it down for you really quickly once and for all. Okay, so you think we've got freedom of speech here in the UK. Let me be blunt, we don't. At least not the way most people think we do. Every day I see comments like, it's my right of free speech, freedom of expression, I can say what I like, thinking they are completely insulated from any criminal liability because of some God-given right that they don't really understand. Now, it's not my position to say what is right or wrong in terms of the law, but it is my job to explain the law so people don't land in trouble, because the truth is, here in Britain, people are fined and they are banned and they are even arrested, as you've probably seen in the news, for the things that they say. Whether you're a prominent figure like Tommy Robinson, for example, protesting on immigration on our streets, or whether you're a Just Stop Oil protester blocking the roads, the streets, or someone posting controversial comments on X, and you're all subject to the same simple law, which I'll explain now. So here's how the video is going to go very quickly. Firstly, I'm going to explain very simply what the actual law is in the UK and why it differs so critically from the USA. And then I'm going to go through a very simple myth versus reality buster section to help illustrate those points for you with real life examples. So in the next few minutes, you are going to understand why Britain's free speech is so crucially different from America's, why people get in trouble, and most importantly, how you can speak your truth without fear of criminality. And the best bit, as always, I'm going to do it in just under 8 minutes, so let's get straight into it. Let's firstly look at the law and what it says in the UK. Now, quick one, guys, before we begin, I'll never ask you to hit my subscribe button at any point, only that you give me the opportunity to earn that from you with the content that I'm making for you. So if at the end of this video that you feel like you've liked or learned or taken anything of value from the video, then please feel free to do so. Okay, so many people have been misled about what freedom of speech actually means here. We do not have a constitution. There is no enshrined First Amendment. Nothing is absolute. In Britain, freedom of expression comes from Article 10 of the European Convention on Human Rights, built into UK law through the Human Rights Act 1998. Now, Article 10 says that everyone has the right to freedom of expression. This includes the freedom to hold opinions and to receive and impart information and ideas without interference by public authority. That sounds pretty absolute, doesn't it? But here is the key part most people have never read. Article 10 then immediately goes on to say that this right may be subject to such formalities, conditions, restrictions, or penalties as prescribed by law and are necessary in democratic society. In other words, you do have freedom of expression, but it is a qualified right, not an absolute right. Parliament can pass laws in this country restricting it if they say it's necessary for things like national security, public safety, prevention of a crime, or protection of health or morals, or protection of the reputation or rights of other people. That's why we have hate speech laws here, defamation laws, laws against harassment, public order offences. That's the reason those laws are in place. So freedom of speech in the UK is always balanced against other people's rights. That's the bottom line. So why does it and how is it different from the USA? Now, with everything that's going on in America, there is a lot of discussion now, isn't there, around free speech? You know, even with the president, Donald Trump, being charged for inciting lawless action on the Capitol building riots, do you remember? Which was found to be a breach of free speech. It's all very confusing for people over here. Now, in the US, the First Amendment to their constitution makes freedom of speech almost absolute. So courts have repeatedly ruled that even deeply offensive, racist, or extremist speech is still protected there as long as it doesn't directly incite violence. That's why, for example, neo-Nazi rallies or flag burning can be lawful in the States, whereas it probably would not be in the United Kingdom. But remember, Britain never wrote free speech into a single constitution. Instead, we treat it as one right amongst many to be weighed against others. That's what's important here. The US model is free speech is above all. The UK model is free speech, but not at the expense of safety and dignity and justice. That's why someone like Tommy Robinson, for example, can say things in America that would be protected, but here his rallies and his speeches, for example, have been restricted and prosecuted if they stir up racial hatred or threaten public order. And it's why protest groups like Just Stop Oil, that's a good example, can lawfully chant for climate action, but once they block motorways or interfere with public life, that's when the police step in. Courts might frame that as political expression. In the UK, it's plain obstruction. Okay, so now you know the law. That's all the theoretical part. I know some of you already probably know much of that, but it's the application to real life circumstances which people still find confusing, and many people make mistakes here. So here is a very important myth versus reality buster, which is going to be very revealing. Okay, myth number one, I can say whatever I want, it's free speech. Reality? No, wrong. If what you say is threatening, abusive, or likely to cause harassment, alarm, or distress, which is the definition, legal definition of harassment, it can be a criminal offence. People have been convicted just for abusive tweets. Look, take a look at that Count Dankula, I think it was. I think his real name was Mark Meechan. 2018, he was convicted for posting a YouTube video where he taught his pug to do a Nazi salute as a joke. Now, the court ruled it as grossly offensive under the Communications Act, I think, whereas in America, that would almost certainly be protected speech. In Britain, it is not, so be careful what you post. Myth number two, another very common misconception then, you can't actually be arrested for your words. The reality is, yes, you definitely can. Look at Lucy Connolly. You probably heard this in the news. It's been all over the news recently. A former childminder in the UK posted a tweet calling for hotels, asylum seeker hotels, to be set on fire. Now, Connolly was convicted of inciting racial hatred under the Public Order Act, and in October 2024, she was sentenced to something like a year or 2 years in prison, I can't remember. Her post was viewed by hundreds of thousands of people before being deleted, and the court found her words had crossed that line. So this isn't just a theoretical risk, it happens. People get arrested. Freedom of speech does not protect calls for violence or hateful content. Myth number three then is that free speech also applies in the workplace. Guys, look, this again is not true. Now, you are free to speak, but your employer, for example, is free to discipline you if it breaches workplace rules and workplace guidelines. Remember, private companies, unlike in the US, and employers can still act against you if it breaches their policies of which you agreed to at the time of signing your employment contract. It just means that you're free from government interference. That's a very important distinction. Social media platforms, for example, can ban you. That's not a violation of free speech rights because those only stop governments from interfering. Private companies and employers can still act against you. There are consequences. Think of nurses, police officers, teachers, etc., who've been disciplined or dismissed over offensive tweets. That's not the state jailing them, that's employment law in action. Okay, now myth number four then is protests. Protests are always protected speech. Reality, again, no. Peaceful protest is protected, yes, but not unconditionally. Peaceful marchers, as I've said, fine. Sitting in the middle of a motorway causing chaos, that's obstruction, and the police can legally arrest you for it. Again, using the example of Just Stop Oil protesters, they've been repeatedly convicted, not for what they believe, but for how they protest. And the final myth, one that I've been continuously reading, is that it's discrimination if my views aren't allowed. And the reality is this, look, the Equality Act does protect freedom of belief, including freedom of political beliefs, but if how you express them, again, how you express them becomes abusive or harassing, that protection from the Equality Act won't shield you. Tommy Robinson supporters often shout free speech when he's arrested, but the law says his speech isn't being banned because of its beliefs, it's being banned because of the harmful way that he expresses them. But guys, look, this is just what the law is saying. That's my job to explain the law. It's not my job to say what is right or wrong, despite my personal opinions of it. My job on this platform is purely to explain and simplify the laws that relate to you and stop people being harmed by them. And look, there are grey areas where the rules aren't so clear, but people can still get caught out. So let me be very transparent now on grey areas. This is where ordinary people can and do get caught out. Number one, reposting online speech. Retweeting or liking something offensive can in the UK and is shown to be sometimes treated as publishing it. That's why online abuse cases keep cropping up. And then the second grey area is workplaces, right? Free speech, as I said, doesn't protect you from being disciplined by your employer, even though legally your speech is protected by law in this country. If your comments breach company policies, you can be sacked, and tribunals in my experience, often back employers, okay? Okay, guys, in this final section, here are some quick practical tips that I really want to give you so I know that you're going to stay out of trouble. Number one, debate ideas, okay? Do not debate people. You can criticize policies and even governments and religions, that's fine, but you've got to be careful to avoid threats or abuse or slurs aimed at individuals. That's why we have defamation laws in the UK. Number two, keep protests peaceful. Number three, think before you post. And number four, don't confuse free speech with job protection, as I mentioned before. And there we have it, guys. If you've liked or taken anything from the value, then please do give it a like or share it with someone you think you might find value in it. And please get down in the comments. I really want to start a discussion with you guys. What do you think about the laws in this country? How they differ? Do you think they should be stricter, less strict? I'd love to hear from you. Let's get a discussion going down in the comments. And remember, guys, this is not specific legal advice. I cannot give that through YouTube. This is purely educational content only. That said, I'll see you in the next video.